Welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and we got new cards coming out because, of course, we always have new cards coming out. Haven't really done any spoiler videos in a while. I thought I would do one here. We are getting Foundations, which, to my understanding, I usually just ask my patrons about this stuff because I don't really want to do the research. I just like talking about commanders. So essentially, this is going to be the new core set. They've changed standard. Standard works differently than it used to, I guess. And it turns out that printing cards just for Commander for like 5 or 6 years means that everyone is not playing other formats. So now they're trying to get people back into Standard, and I think they're changing how Standard works, how the whole core set thing works, all of that, to try to get people back into Standard. Essentially, this is a core set. From what I've heard of my patrons, it kind of just looks like a Commander Master set. So they're still just printing cards essentially for Commander. Thought I'd talk about some legendary creatures here. Let's take a look. So Tycho the Patient Avalanche, 3 and a blue turtle ninja. Of course, it's a turtle ninja or a ninja turtle. 4/5. Tycho the Patient Avalanche enters tapped. That's interesting. You don't see that much on creatures anymore. Whenever another creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it didn't die, scry 1 and put a +1/+1 counter on Tycho. Did we not just get a card with that very similar wording? If it leaves the battlefield and it didn't die? I think we did. I think it was blue too, so it likely will go in this deck. So obviously, blinking will work. That's probably the easiest way to have your creatures leave the battlefield and not die. If you get farewelled, hey, this is a commander that is farewell resistant. Obviously, I mean, you're not going to get much out of it because your commander's going to get exiled as well, but you'll get a bunch of scry triggers. At least that's something, right? So you want your creatures to be leaving the battlefield without dying. Yeah, blinking is the big one. You could bounce them to your hand. That's another one. So there is a little bit you could do there. Whenever Tycho attacks, you may pay black and a blue. So we have a Dimir commander here. When you do, target attacking creature can't be blocked this turn. I wonder why this guy enters the battlefield tapped. That's interesting. That doesn't seem to fit with anything else other than you can't attack with him right away. If you gave him, if you put a Lightning Greaves on him, it wouldn't do nothing because he enters the battlefield tapped. So whenever he attacks, you may pay a Dimir hybrid mana. When you do, target attacking creature can't be blocked this turn. Okay, I mean, that works with ninjas, and maybe that's why the Dimir, again, you can't make this a mono blue ninjas commander. You got to throw the Dimir hybrid symbol on there so that people can just make this a straight up ninja deck, maybe a ninja turtle deck or something. I'm sure there's again, everything is very memey nowadays when it comes to Magic cards. So maybe that's the direction they're going here. Again, now the more I think about it, okay, yeah, returning creatures to hand. Ninjas. Okay, they're just making a ninja commander here. They're just doing it a little differently. I like that it's not so on the nose. I mean, it's pretty obvious what you're going to be doing here the more you think about it. Obviously, everyone's just going to be doing ninja decks here. It's kind of funny how you come out with all these ninja commanders and then now you make more interesting ones. And this one's going to get used probably not nearly as much because we already have way better ones. So, printing all those busted commanders, again, that era of about 2018, 2020 in there, they were just printing these insanely busted commanders for every occasion. So now when they print more interesting ones like this, nobody really goes after them because there's already way better versions. So they sort of screwed themselves going forward here. And it's pretty interesting. Again, the unblockable with the return to hand stuff and all that makes it very obviously a just ninja tribal commander, which is, I think this would have been a little more interesting if they had made it a Simic, because there is some green ninjas and this would be, that would be a reason to go after this. Why make it Dimir? Make it a Simic commander, because then people can do a Simic ninja, and that works better with the ninja turtle thing too. So a Simic ninja commander would have been neat here. I mean, it's interesting, and obviously you don't have to do ninjas. You can figure out some other neat ways to build around this. I think likely, though, most people just be doing ninjas with it. Moving along, we got another Tiny Bones, Bobble Burglar. This is a commander they keep revisiting in certain sets, I think, because, again, it's very memey. 1 on a black, Skeleton Rogue 1/3. Whenever an opponent discards a card, exile it from their graveyard with a stash counter on it. So already, again, just like the original Tiny Bones, just like Turgid. These are commanders that are enticing you to do things that your opponents are going to hate. So for that reason, we're always going to be in that situation. I mean, I'm not saying you can't do it. Go ahead. Your opponents are likely going to hate what you're doing, though. During your turn, you may play cards you don't own with stash counters on them from exile. You don't own. Whenever opponent to... Well, why would you own cards with stash counters on them? Because it's only whenever your opponent discards a card, right? Whatever. Of course, any type of mana can be spent to cast those cards, as I've been saying for about 5 years now, or well, pretty much the start of my channel. We need a phrase for that. You can spend mana of any color. Clearly, they're trying to save words on cards now, so coming up with a term for that would definitely save a lot of words. 3 and a black, tap. Each opponent discards a card. Activate only as a sorcery. Yeah. So this is kind of combining the other 2 tiny bones into one, isn't it? That kind of seems like what's going on here. Because the tiny bones, the original one, of course, was the discard theme. The one from Outlaws of Thunder Junction was kind of like stealing your opponent's stuff. So I think we're kind of combining the 2 here. I mean, all the tiny bones go in each other's decks. They all work together. Not super exciting. I mean, again, you're doing the discard theme and the I play my opponent's stuff theme. Both of those themes have been done to death in the Commander format, especially in black. And again, they're both themes that your opponents are absolutely going to hate playing against. So again, you can do it, but expect your commander to get killed on a regular basis. And mono black isn't the best at protecting its stuff. Okay, Shrufus, Sprout Sire. This I think is going to be a pretty popular one. And I think this is this the first Saproling tribal commander that's actually a Saproling? For that reason alone, I think people are going to go after it, and I also think it's really powerful. So 2 and a green, Saproling 1/1 with trample. I wonder, and now I'm trying to think, how many actual creatures do we have that are Saprolings? Do we have some? Because, of course, typically they're tokens, right? So whenever a Saproling you control deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 green Saproling creature tokens. Wow. This is like Nigila for Saprolings, and how ridiculous is this going to get, I wonder? Obviously, your commander's a 1/1, but as trample, so, it's going to be pretty easy to get completely out of hand. In fact, this could be the Krenko, the green Krenko. It could be. Because things can get out of hand. Again, just like with Nigila, Krenko, very similar comparisons, I think. This guy looks real innocent. Look at that goofy picture. He's got a mushroom head or whatever. Don't be deceived. I think this can be insanely powerful. I mean, your commander costs 3. You can just very easily play this on turn 2, right? I put a bunch of 1-mana dorks in my deck. So it's really easy to get this out on turn 2. Attack with it right away. You're for sure going to have an opponent that doesn't have... I mean, let's just... Giant Growth. There you go. Just a Giant Growth. I attack with my commander. I Giant Growth it. I'm likely going to have at least one opponent that doesn't have blockers that I can get in with, even if they have a 1/1 in play. Again, I'm Giant Growthing it, but let's pretend they have no blockers. Again, I'm just going to play out the very likely, very typical, I would say, scenario here. So I'm on turn 3 here, right? I've gotten in for 4 damage. I create 4 Saprolings. I now have 5 Saprolings in play. By the way, I've used only 1 mana. I can still do a bunch of other stuff on turn 3 here. We're already, in my opinion, in the situation where my opponents better draw board wipe soon, right? Because I now have 5 Saprolings in play. The following turn, and of course, because Saprolings are all 1/1 and your commander's a 1/1, anthems and overrun effects are going to be super important for you. You're going to fill your deck with them. And you don't need, right? Again, just like a Nigila deck, I don't need other, I guess this guy's even better than Krenko, because Krenko, you need other goblins in play. With this guy, you do not. So the next turn, now we're on turn, 4 or 5? I cast just an overrun, just good old-fashioned overrun, right? All my creatures get +3/+3 in trample. I have 5 Saproling in play. So I've already got 5 times 4, 20 damage on board. All of my creatures are Saprolings, and when they deal combat damage to a player, you create that many. Right, so yeah, now turn 5. Am I on turn 4 or 5? Whatever turn I'm on, I have already created, I believe I'm only on turn 4 here. I've already created, I'm going to do 20 damage. Let's pretend it doesn't all get through. Let's pretend 15 gets through. I now create 15 more saprolings plus the 5 I've already got. I got 20 saprolings in play. I've done a ton of damage. I've also got 20 saprolings in play on turn, 4 or whatever turn we're on. It doesn't look that crazy, but I think this is absolutely insane. Again, the overrun effects, the giant growth effects, super easy to do in mono green. This is the mono green Najeela or the mono green Krenko. Yeah, I'm calling it right now. This commander, even though it looks goofy and unassuming, I think is pretty insane. Speaking of insane, of course, whenever we get a new NIV Mizit, they're always trying to beat the one that came before. I don't know if this is better than NIV Mizit pair run, but it's pretty friggin' crazy. So 4 blue and a red Dragon Wizard 5/5 with flying. You have no maximum hand size, so we know what's coming next. Again, you always need the sort of, the one ability always works with the one that comes next. Whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you may draw that many cards. Wow, that's crazy. And this does cost 6. You guys can let me know in the comments below. Is this crazier than NIV Mizit pair run? I think NIV Mizit pair run is one of the craziest commanders, one of the most powerful commanders in the format. And in the 99, people can put NIV Mizit pair run in the 99 of any Izzet deck, and it's just going to be a card draw engine. Just going to sit there drawing tons and tons of cards and throwing damage around. Now, this guy doesn't actually throw damage around, so you do have to build around it a little bit. NIV Mizit pair run, you don't have to build around at all. Anyone casting an instant or sorcery, which of course happens 1,000 times in every commander game. That's why that commander is stupid ridiculous. That's back in that era that I was talking about, the 2018 era, where they were just printing, hey, let's just make the most ridiculous commander ever that everybody's going to want to play. They thought that was a good idea to get everyone to play commander. Now I guess we're toning it down a little bit here. Yeah, that one also can't be countered, right? Like, let's slap that on there, because why not? Here though, man, the potential for the big swing is, of course, I think a lot worse. I mean, Chandra's Ignition that's the first card I thought of when I saw this. I cast Chandra's Ignition, targeting my commander, obviously ideal. Likely I will wipe probably the majority of the creatures off the board. I will also deal 5 damage to each of my opponents. And whenever an opponent is dealt non-combat damage, you draw that many cards. Again, there's that phrase that always gets out of hand. So I'm going to draw 15 cards. That's crazy, right? That's insane. And you have no maximum hand size. And out of all those cards you draw, some of them are going to be, a Fierce Guardianship or something. So my opponent's attempting to board wipe or attempting to get my commander off the battlefield. I'll just have tons of counter magic and whatnot. So we can make a really powerful deck here. Again, I mean, it's looking like there are some real busted commanders already in this set. I don't think they're toning it down much. And maybe the worst of all, I don't know which is the worst. These last 3 here, I think, are all pretty insane. As I played through that Shrufus scenario, I was like, this commander is maybe worse than I originally thought. Let's play through this one and see what happens. So General Crete, the Bolt Bringer, 2 and a red, Goblin Soldier 2/2. Whenever one or more goblins you control attack, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking. So got lots of effects that do that. As far as just a goblin commander, that's okay. It's not bad. I mean, you're going to create just 1 goblin here. I don't think there's any way to get more than 1. You're only going to, outside of Stranic Resonator, or I guess Roaming Throne, right? I guess you could put a Roaming Throne in here, get a couple of goblins every time you attack. Token doublers in red, I don't think we have any there, right? However, where it gets really insane is whenever another creature you control enters General Crete, the Boltbringer deals 1 damage to each opponent. So again, now we have this setup and the payoff on it. This is sort of the epitome of that. I don't need to put a Impact Tremors in my deck anymore, right? Everyone puts Impact Tremors in their Krenko deck. This is, I guess it's not as insane as Krenko. Krenko does have the potential to create way more goblin tokens. And if you got the Impact Tremors in play, it gets out of hand a little faster, but this guy, you can just do it in reverse with this guy, right? I can just have Krenko in the 99 because the Impact Tremors is stapled on my commander. This is just a Porphyros. Is this worse than Porphyros? Maybe not. Porphyros does 2 damage. Obviously, Porphyros is going to go in this deck. Maybe I'm blowing it a little bit out of proportion, but you have Impact Tremors stapled on your commander. I know we already have that with Porphyros, but what do people do with Porphyros decks? They typically just put goblins into play, and this guy is a goblin. So I can do the goblin tribal thing here and have the Impact Tremors stapled on my commander already. So is this worse than a Perforos? Maybe not. I guess Perforos is also an indestructible enchantment, which makes it really difficult to get it off the table a lot of times. But man, they're just making it too easy for people now. Like, don't worry about getting impact tremors. It's stapled on your commander now. So now you just crank out those goblin tokens and, you can attack. You don't really need to because you could just sit there casting, goblin creation stuff and just dealing damage to each of your opponents. I mean, I don't love having another commander like this in the commander format, but whatever. I guess we kind of already have stuff like this. So what can you say? All right, there you go. 5 commanders coming out in Foundations. And I think it's Foundations Jumpstart as well. I think they're combining Foundations and Jumpstart. So the whole Jumpstart thing is being combined with the core set. I'm not an expert on all of that, but all I know is here's 5 commanders that we can play in the commander format. That's the important part that I'm talking about here. We got some real busted ones here coming out already. For me, Shrufus is looking like board wipe or bust. That's another, you better have a board wipe pretty early on in the game or things get completely out of hand. How out of hand? I don't know. I guess we'll find out eventually. Again, when Nagila came out, people were like, hey, 5-color warrior tribal, yay. And then pretty soon they realized, hey, this is a CDH commander. Could Shrufus be there too? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe I'm blowing things out of proportion here, but it looks like we got some really powerful commanders coming out already. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below. That's it for today, and thanks for tuning in.